All right, welcome to Cybertalk with Bob and Chris. This week is an interesting week, Bob. MGM and Caesars, I think, ruled the day. I don't know. I mean, there's some other things we can talk about, like if you have Adobe, patch that. Windows had some 0 days and stuff like that. But I mean, people only care
Adobe,
about two
Apple.
things.
I heard,
Yeah.
I read this. I read this morning that Apple went back and patched some of the older OSs for the known vulnerability,
Yeah.
but not everything. So
Yeah, Monterey
those
at 15.
old iPhone users, you lucked out. You don't have to go buy the one that just came out this week and to be safe. But yeah,
Yep.
MGM and Caesars, somebody's been gambling with cybersecurity and.
Let's start with Caesars, because Caesars is interesting to me because they paid a ransom. And of course, in their 8K, they don't say they paid the ransom. They say they took steps to avoid the data being leaked, which in code means they paid the ransom. And I think Wall Street Journal reported 15 million out of 30. They got hit with a ransom for 30, and it was 15 million they paid.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other business now that's out there is ransom negotiators for cyber.
Yeah. I've seen a couple that advertise that they can help negotiate that stuff. There were some swindlers in there too at some point where they would just pay the ransom. This was a couple years ago. I forgot who it was. They paid the ransom, and then they said, "Hey, we got you your data back," but they charged like double what the ransom was. So they went and paid the ransom, took the difference, and then basically just got the decryption key. Can you imagine that business model?
That's a good business model, I guess.
That is ethically questionable.
So since Caesars is a publicly traded company, they actually had to file more based on those new SEC rules, right?
Yeah, so they file an AK, and boy, I tell you what, I love these things. So it seems like the two got hit the same way. The difference being, and the way they got hit was essentially this: somebody looked up somebody's account on LinkedIn. They called the help desk, and they were able to socially engineer somebody into resetting a password and multi-factor authentication. So they were able to get in that way. There's probably more to it than that because they obviously have not released all the information, but that's pretty much what they said. The difference is right now is Caesar said it was an outsourced IT vendor that was breached, and then they were hit. So that's probably they outsourced their help desk. Their help desk reset the password and let them in. All they say in the 8K for Caesars is they noticed some suspicious activity. They did incident response protocols. They implemented some containment and remediation, which they should have, and they launched an investigation and realized that the loyalty program database had been stolen. The problem for all of us, if you've ever gambled at Caesars and you have a loyalty card, a Caesars rewards card, if you will, is they have your social security number and driver's license. And in the 8K filing, they're like, yeah, they got access to that, and that's what was stolen. But get this, they didn't steal your bank account, your PIN, or your credit card.
Well,
just your identity.
Your money's semi-safe. It's just not your identity.
Just your identity was stolen, but that's okay because then they said, quote, "We have taken steps to ensure the stolen data is deleted by the unauthorized actor, although we cannot guarantee this result. I.e., we paid the ransom. We hope they don't release it." This is what happens when lawyers write stuff. I know they have to have a lawyer write this, but like, come on, just say like, you paid it, and they did admit to it. Like I said to the Wall Street Journal. I think Bloomberg might have reported that too. I think Bloomberg reported different numbers, so someplace between 15 and 30 million, roughly. We think 15 because based on the information. So,
well, based on other filings, that's less than a day's worth of revenue for these guys.
Yeah, we haven't got to that. Yeah, so Q3 of 2022, MGM reported that they were making $25 million a day. So
okay.
You pay $15 million ransom. If you figure Caesars is close to that, which I think Caesars might be smaller, I'm not entirely sure. They probably save themselves more than a day of revenue. Now, I'll be fully transparent. I gamble at Caesars. I have a Caesars reward card. I am not going to call their 888 number, which they put in there to get, this is the thing that pisses me off. They put in there, you could call an 888-652-1580 between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, not holidays, and we'll set up credit monitoring for you. How about you just do it? Is it that hard? You know what was stolen, you know what was accessed. If my information wasn't accessed, cool, I don't need credit monitoring. But they're saying
I kind of think they have to set up credit monitoring. Somebody I worked with in the past, they had to set up credit monitoring for every single account that they could figure out was every single person that was affected. And the problem with them is it was the data they had was all user entered and not validated. So yeah. I could have been in there 3 times as Bob Mitchie, Robert Mitchie, and R Mitchie.
I'll tell you, that wouldn't be the casino. That's not the same as the casino. They want you to have one loyalty card member rewards thing, and that's it. But okay, some states might require them to. They're going to have a nightmare in their hands anyway, right? So once they figure out like who's been accessed, they now have to go out to all 50 states. If there's people in all 50 states that are customers, they're going to have to notify all of them. So, and then depending on obviously in Nevada, they're going to have probably way more than whatever the breach notification requirements are in Nevada. I'm assuming in most states they're going to, just because of the sheer size of gambling, and also they have properties all over the United States. MGM will have the same problem, same thing. So
they might need that 15 million they saved.
Yeah. I hope it costs them way more than that. That's another story. They should be fined. The FTC should go and fine them, and at some point, they need to hold executives and board members and things like that accountable for losing data on people, period. And I know that's not a popular opinion inside of our industry, but it's getting to the point where being negligent is okay. And this just reminds me of like the whole Enron and who was it? WorldCom, right? It reminds me of that scandal where they had to put requirements in that a CFO and a CEO have to sign off on accounting accountability, and there's a chance that they go to jail for it. Well, this is what's going to have to happen to protect data. I'm sorry. People don't like that. You need to be held responsible for this. Now, if you have everything in line, if you're doing everything you possibly can, you still get hit. As long as you can prove it, that you've taken steps according to some requirements that we come up with, between whether it's a framework or whether it's legal requirements, fine. But clearly they're not doing that. And people are just playing Russian roulette with people's information, and it's hurting people. So let's move on to MGM, because MGM is really interesting. They didn't pay the ransom.
Did not.
They did not. And so allegedly who hit both of them is a group called Scattered Spider. They are experts at social engineering. Scattered Spider, I forgot where I think TechCrunch said that they didn't hit Caesars, so we'll see about that. But both are social engineering attacks. It was reported by VX Underground that somebody literally just went on LinkedIn, found a person, again, for MGM, called the help desk, got them reset their password and MFA, boom, got in.
Boom, there you go.
Yep. Other reports said that there was also some stolen VPN credentials, so that's how they actually got in the network afterwards. So maybe they had to get their MFA reset, so they probably knew the credentials and then called in the service desk, help desk or whatever, and then got the MFA reset so they could get in. But they posted yesterday kind of a little bit of a recap on what happened. So a week ago, it would have been September 8th, Elf V, who Scattered Spider is a subgroup of, they are a ransomware as a service group. They just write ransomware, and they will sell it to affiliate, and they will split the profits.
Well, I was reading something about those guys, and they seem to have a pretty good market share on that on being the ransomware provider, because about 12% of the attacks last year, I think I read that involved their stuff.
Yeah, and they're hitting some big players. So the way that they work is they typically get stolen credentials, or they go buy credentials from an initial access broker. Well, guess what? When you partner with a group that's really good at social engineering and really good at getting access to accounts in companies, perfect marriage, honestly. Like, people don't want to say that, but it's perfect marriage. So they have some very sophisticated attacks that they can use to launch ransomware. They partnered, it looks like, on this. They released on their leak site that as of Friday, so September 8th, they had access to MGM. They were able to get access to their Okta, which is for their identity management of accessing corporate applications and some MFA. They took over their Microsoft Azure. They got global admin in that. So they have super admin in Okta. They have global admin in that. They had full domain admin access inside of their domain, their Active Directory domain. So, and they were able to dump all of the password hashes for the entire company. So they cracked a lot of those, and then the ones that they didn't crack, they were sniffing. They were doing network sniffs and trying to figure them out. And that's when MGM's people just shut down the Okta sync, basically the Okta servers that are internal to the network to do the syncing.
So people couldn't log in, but the bad guys already in.
Right, the bad guys already had persistence in the network, so they already had it. So it didn't matter. Like they'd already installed persistence.
Let's just interrupt for a minute. So you've got to, it could be that, the internal network teams, we see this a lot, they know what they know, but they don't realize how everything really works. And they're not seeing all the vulnerabilities that are really out there. So, I just turned the passwords. We just shut the passwords off or changed the passwords. That'll keep the bad guys out. Not the case here.
Yeah. And we don't know the inner workings of MGM, obviously.
I'm not even talking about MGM. I'm talking about in general.
Oh yeah, 100%. But in MGM's case, I mean, you got to believe they have a security operations center,
sure,
either outsourced or insourced or whatever. And they didn't see any of this, none of this. And so if you go through and you kind of go through what LV released, they saw them lurking. They shut down their Okta agent servers, but they already had admin passwords inside their network, inside their Microsoft Azure tenant, inside their Okta. On Sunday night, MGM decided to implement conditional restrictions that barred all access to their Okta. And LV kind of trolls them a little bit and says, well, that was due to the inadequate administrative capabilities and weak incident response playbooks. That's a little bit of a troll job, guys. Due to their network's engineers' lack of understanding of how the network functions, network access was problematic on Saturday. Then they made the decision to take offline seemingly important components of their infrastructure on Sunday. So they were trying to communicate with MGM, and MGM just didn't communicate. So on September 11th, which fortunately that's the date it is, they decided to encrypt all 100, or they may have more than 100 ESX hypervisors, so VMware servers. This runs their entire infrastructure, guys. We don't even know how many virtual machines are on these hosts. It's probably in the hundreds, or if not thousands. They encrypted all of them. And that's when MGM really has a big problem on their hands. And it doesn't seem like they've engaged since then. So initially they gained access. There was a rumor that they were just trying to hack slot machines and just trying to use mules to get that out. And when that failed, that's when they resorted to this. That's not on what they put, but that's one of the rumors. But to give you full context, again, they make roughly around $25 million a day. This is catastrophic. This is like a nuclear event. If they bring stuff up too quickly and the threat actors still have persistence, which they claim they do, they could just re-encrypt stuff. They have to basically be 100% sure that there's no level of persistence for this group inside their network. And that's incredibly difficult, especially at that scale. The scale of MGM is just so they have to verify it. They have to guarantee it. Because again, if they bring it back up and they still have access, they're just going to do the same thing.
And then, the other thing is, I don't, like you said, we don't know what the environment really looks like, but who says that the bad guys don't have persistent access on something sitting in the corner somewhere that they've, something, I'll say a copy machine controller, because a lot of older copy machines have old Windows NT boxes sitting embedded in them. So this really is going to be a wipe and start over. Well,
we don't know anything about their backup infrastructure, which we shouldn't. They shouldn't make that public anyway. I mean, we're reading public information that's been posted. If they have to restore thousands of virtual machines, nobody, and I mean very few companies would go through the level of testing to restore that many virtual machines.
Oh yeah.
Especially at an operation that's 24/7. Because I mean, look, casinos don't shut down, right? Well, didn't for now, but they may have problems. They're going to have to pick a time. Like LV says, hey, we were in there since Friday. What if they were in there before that? What if they lied? And if you restore to the wrong point, you just give them persistence back. this is an incredibly complex recovery, which is probably involving just so many companies. And I talked to an incident response guy last weekend, and he's done some larger corporate incident response for like ransomware and things like that. And he says when he goes into these, like, if nobody takes control from the company, so if you don't have a strong CISO or a strong leadership in the company, these companies just say you need to load this tool and our tool because this is the only tool we understand, and they just overshadow each other and they overlap each other, and it's just chaos. So you feel for the people that are in this situation, the people that are trying to recover this. There's no telling. I know their website's back up today, but like there's no telling how long this is going to take. There's no telling how long this is going to affect their operations. And hey, if it's like Caesars, guess what? I'm going to be getting a letter in the mail for that one for them too. By the way, people probably think I'm a degenerate gambler at this point because, but yeah, no, I'm not happy about it. I feel bad for the teams, like I said, that are trying to recover from this. But this is just a lesson. Look, if a 10-minute conversation with a help desk agent can compromise your company, that's a problem. And this is not an enterprise problem. This is the problem all the way down. So depending on who you do business with,
and it doesn't, and it really doesn't matter if you're outsourcing or insourcing that process, because help desk engineers or anybody can easily be fooled with the right script and background things going on. I saw a video, somebody calling the phone company and getting everything changed because she seemed needy and had a baby crying in the background that was playing on YouTube.
Oh, that was a good one. That was got access to their Verizon account or something.
Got access to the Verizon account.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Because she was like, "Here, watch this," and she did. Actually, I think she did it for a newscast. And,
yeah, it was a newscast. She did it live on the air.
And she went to YouTube and played a baby, and the guy wanted to help her and get it done, and they moved on. So every social engineering is huge. People need to be there. If any type of remote help, we validate people with authentication codes now that are changing. But it's
that's
not
rare.
That's not rare. The help desk we need to be looking at right now. It's probably time to bring in a third party to go in and just see if your team really has you covered everywhere else.
Yeah, and I think this is where, depends on how big of a company you are, you can take some really small takeaways from this. One, if you're calling into a service desk and they're not asking you to verify your identity, maybe it's time to really talk to them about that. This is stuff that, like, this should exist. This should exist at MGM, and this is a hard line. If somebody can't verify who they are, you don't change it. Period. That's a fireable offense. But unfortunately, if they fire the person that did this for MGM, I mean, what's that? If somebody's out of the job, but they're still dealing with
I may be looking for a new payroll company because they don't support MFA. So, what's that?
Your payroll company doesn't?
The payroll company that we were using doesn't support MFA. We called up and said, "Oh, well, whenever we ask for anything critical, we'll ask you for your password again."
Next.
Meanwhile, I went in and created a report that had everybody's social on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't have that payroll problem, but if you're dealing with a vendor, IT vendor or whatnot, and you call help desk and they're not verifying who you are based on something that or you have, you need to really think about that. Think about your supply chain as a business. If you have vendors and customers that you deal with, if, again, that level of verification is something to think about, especially for like invoice manipulation and things like that. It's very simple for people to trick people. And unfortunately, humans are a weak link in this whole chain of security. And we have to do everything we can to protect the users and protect the business. So on that note, I'm sure we'll have more information about this as it comes out. But maybe next week we can talk about something different, but maybe we might continue this conversation because I'm sure there's going to be some juicy details that come out during the next few days. And hopefully
this is going to go on for a while. There'll be a lot of details coming out on this one.
And again, I hope the people working on this inside of MGM, I mean, I feel for them. Like this has got to be terrible for them and their families. And, the patrons are one thing, but literally the families that are involved in this is terrible. So, but we just need to do better as a society and working together and holding people accountable.
Cool.
On that note,
we went 20 minutes. I don't even know if anybody's even still listening to us, but
They should be. We're really good.
That's right. Have a good week, guys.
All right, I'll talk to you next.